Okay, DYAMI Brown just went off, and y'all know that this was a wide receiver that I did not like coming into the NFL draft. Y'all know that this is someone that I was lower on than consensus. And at this point, there is no reason for me to change that stance after we see a ton of wide receivers that were just completely off the radar, guys that we have no interest in Dynasty go ahead of DYAMI Brown. And we now understand what the NFL is telling us. And this is what I was trying to say all along. And I know y'all are tired of hearing me say this, but he looks just like James Washington, where when James Washington came out of Oklahoma State, yes, he was very productive there. He looked like a great wide receiver. And y'all know I don't talk about athleticism and 40-yard dash time really mattering at the wide receiver position that much, except with a few wide receivers. And those are the wide receivers that profile to be the deep threats at the NFL, the wide receivers that profile to be going and getting targeted with a very high average depth of target. If that is going to be you, then you have to win with speed. You have to possess that elite speed. And I know if you were watching them cover the draft, they were talking about DYAMI Brown having that elite speed, and that's because he won that way in UNC, where I am saying that at UNC, I think mainly why you saw him be able to have a very high average depth of target, I think why you saw him be able to succeed deep downfield is more so due to the fact that he was playing with one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, Sam Howell, who's going to be the #1 overall drafted quarterback in next year's draft. So now we go, okay, so he was playing with an elite quarterback. He wins deep downfield in college. He gets to his pro day, and he does not show that elite speed is actually there. He's actually a lot slower than a lot of people were expecting at his pro day. So I think that's a red flag because James Washington was the same exact type of wide receiver. He was the same wide receiver that was a great deep threat in college. He looked like he was going to be a deep threat once he got to the NFL, and he was highly productive. James Washington was someone that before the combine we really liked. Then he comes out and he does not put up an impressive 40. He does not put up a 40-yard dash time that would represent a field-stretching deep threat option at the NFL level. So here with DYAMI Brown, I am seeing the same thing. And let's pull up a list of wide receivers that have gone off the board before him in the NFL draft. And I know this isn't everything, but I just want to bring this up and kind of laugh because I know a lot of people are not going to be moving Brown down their rankings just because they liked him coming in. So, of course, they are not going to be just looking at it, I don't want to say objectively, but they're not going to want to move Brown down regardless. Now, if we are going through and we are looking at wide receivers that went ahead of him, so he goes off as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He goes off as the 12th wide receiver in this draft class. And something I want to bring up is the fact that the NFL will always value those deep threat wide receivers, the guys that will raise the overall efficiency of the offense. They'll value them higher than the guys that may actually be able to command volume and help your fantasy football team. So this is not a good sign for DYAMI Brown because he is that deep threat wide receiver and he did not get valued highly. And the perfect example that I can give of this is pretty much everybody understands that Devontae Smith should out-target Jalen Waddle in Dynasty Fantasy Football. He should probably outproduce him at the same time. Yet who's the more valuable real-life NFL wide receiver? Who went before the other in the NFL draft, and that is Jalen Waddle because he possesses that deep threat ability. He possesses the ability to take the top off the defense that Devontae Smith we don't necessarily know. And another great example is look at Kadarius Toney versus Rashad Bateman, the wide receivers 4 and 5 in this class, where nobody is thinking that Kadarius Toney is a better dynasty wide receiver than Rashad Bateman, but he goes ahead of him in the NFL draft because he has the speed, he has the ability to stretch the field. We can go down. We can see the same thing with both Dwayne Eskridge and Tutu Atwell going ahead of Terrace Marshall. So we are seeing over and over and over again that the NFL will decide to go and they'll overvalue those deep threats relative to the amount of volume that they expect to see at the NFL level. Yet in the case of Brown, he's supposed to be that deep threat and the NFL doesn't value him. So for dynasty leagues, I don't think that we should necessarily be valuing him either. Now, if we were talking about exactly where he is going to be ranked, now I currently over on Patreon have him ranked as an early 3rd round Dynasty Superflex pick, but I think that we are going to need to bump him down just slightly. My official rankings will be updated over on Patreon tonight, and I'm sure I'll update them again tomorrow. I'm sure I'll update them the day after that as we let these landing spots sink in a little bit more. But yeah, Brown, I think he has to be a loser, especially going to the Washington situation, because obviously Terry McLaurin, he's going to be the alpha there. They bring in Curtis Samuel. They give Curtis Samuel a ton of money. It looks like Curtis Samuel should expect to be the wide receiver too. Then you have Logan Thomas, a tight end that was able to command a good amount of targets. And yes, I understand that Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's very good for fantasy. He's a very good quarterback in putting up numbers for the wide receivers in his offense because he's that D-gap quarterback. He doesn't need to see the throw before he can make it. So yeah, you like the fact that he is there for 2021, but beyond that, you don't necessarily get that excited about it because you are seeing Washington as a team that what is their long-term option at the quarterback position? Because Ryan Fitzpatrick, obviously only a 2021 option. Then beyond that, they don't have anything, and they can't fall back on trying to get a top 5 quarterback in next year's NFL draft because they're going to be a good football team. They have a great defense combined with the fact that Fitzpatrick should be good enough to be able to get them some wins at the very least. Yeah, he's going to blunder some games, but he's going to drag them to be decent in a few areas. So I will say that DYAMI Brown, probably someone I'm not drafting at all. I said I wasn't going to draft him coming into the NFL draft. All our concerns, I think, are now proved warranted. So let me know if y'all think I am wrong with this. And I'm not going to say that this hurts either Curtis Samuel or Terry McLaurin. I think that they are completely fine. I think that they are locked in as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on this offense. Well, let's pull this up and let's see if we have any questions regarding the pick. Okay, Tyler asking, what do you think about the Chargers drafting Joshua Palmer? Man, here with Joshua Palmer, I'm not going to lie. I have no idea who the hell Joshua Palmer is. That's why I didn't go live. He was not someone on my radar coming into the draft. I thought that if he was going to be an impact for Dynasty, it just would be completely out of left field where maybe he went on day 3, he went in round 4 or 5 and then worked his way up a bad depth chart like the Las Vegas Raiders. I had no idea he was going to be drafted within the top 100 picks of the NFL draft. So yes, we definitely need to dive into him. I was looking at his analytics and the boxes that we look for after that draft pick, and really he doesn't check that many. So I don't know if we can get excited. Not someone on the radar beforehand, so I don't want to be jumping him up and putting him on there right now. But P. Good says, bad landing spots for fantasy football this year overall. Yes, sir. I have to agree with that. JN coming out says, Amari Rodgers to Green Bay. Okay, now that is exciting. That is something we can get behind. Let's end this live stream. I'm going to start a new live stream talking about Amari Rodgers. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Make sure you drop a like. Go over to that other live stream. And I want to remind everyone over on Patreon, all of our rookie rankings will be updated tonight as well as tomorrow and hopefully next week as well.